There comes a time when we have to stop negotiating with ourselves. We have to start embracing those irreversible shifts that lead to the most unapologetic, raw expressions of ourselves. This is Sexy Rebel Spirit, the private podcast by House of Andrea that drops live every single day into our exclusive Telegram space. If you're not in that space and you want to join the conversation, you'll find the link to it in the show notes. It's sexuality, it's rebellion, it's spirituality, and how these three things are simply the expression of who you are. This is your calibration portal, and this is where it all gets to change. So let's dive in. Good morning. I was tuning into the energy this morning. And this conversation of shame is stepping forward. So I want to dive into this in this moment because I had this really interesting experience last night. I got a call about 4:30 last night that my mum was in the area and she lives a couple of hours away. And so when she has to come up to the city, it is beautiful to be able to catch up with her. And so she rang me and she said, I'm like 20 minutes away. Can I pop in? I'm like, yes, of course. It would be magic to see you because we hadn't caught up in a while. And she came over and we were just chatting. And somehow the conversation led to talking about all of the different moves that I have made in my life, all the different house moves, the places that I've lived. And if you know me intimately, you will know that I have moved around a lot. I've moved around a lot since leaving home to go to university. And we've counted it up and it's over 30. I think it's sitting at around 36 different houses. So whether they were share houses during university, living on campus, or different houses that I've rented or owned, or having to move either because I was in a situation where the living situation became uncomfortable, dangerous, a housemate became problematic, or I was living with boyfriends at the time and those relationships broke down, or I moved interstate, or I moved to different cities. Like there has been so many different shifts. And we sat there around the table with my mum, my stepdad, myself, and my husband, and we went through all the different shifts, all since leaving home to go to my very first university degree. And of course, when you're talking about moving, you talk about the catalysts of moving. And so therefore, we talk about the relationships that I was in and the boyfriends that I had chosen, or the situations that I had found myself in. And as I was telling the story, of course, it was jovial because there's part of it that was jovial because I was like, oh, and then this happened, or and then this broke down, and then I started dating this person and moved in here. I got to the end of the story, which, because there's so many moves and so many different countries and states and situations and work and like friendships that started and then broke down and relationships that started and broke down. I told the story and we had a good laugh about how many times my parents have turned up to a house with a trailer to shift me, and also, a giggle about all of the different boys that I dated, which if you've listened to the origin message transmission that I dropped in the other day, like this needing to have a boyfriend to feel, like I was worth something, that I was lovable. There was a lot of energy as I walked away from the dinner and I kissed my parents goodbye and they left to travel home, and Matt and I returned home to our house because we'd gone out for dinner at this point. I was starting to feel this energy of shame and of sadness and remembering that brokenness that at the time I felt through all of those different instances of desperate energy of, going through a breakup, having to move, having to relocate, having to reestablish, find new housemates, friends. Often I'd move into state or a new city or into a new job. And so there was this constant, both adventure, curiosity, brave, bold, moving on when things weren't right energy, deciding that this situation wasn't good for me and so I'd move. But also that feeling of brokenness, of sadness, of shame, of like, why couldn't I just get it right from the start? Why did I have to choose such, sometimes dangerous relationships or, problematic situations? Or there was times in the story where I'm like, well, I broke up with this person and then moved into state and then came back and then got back together with that person and moved into this share house with them. There's this feeling of shame of like, well, why did I go back? Like, why couldn't I from day one just be so embodied and so empowered in myself to you want to say, get it right, even although I look at the story with both love and admiration for myself, for still being here through some of the situations that I encountered and navigated, and being willing to say when things weren't right. But there was sadness and love and compassion there, and shame that was rising around. I wish I didn't have this story. I wish I didn't have that visceral memory of the feelings that I felt, the emptiness, the despair, the anxiety, the depression, just that longing to feel loved that led me to make poor decisions, to not trust my truth, I was not in my body. It didn't feel sexy. I didn't feel powerful. I felt desperate. I felt like I rejected my body, my shape, how I looked. At that time I was always sort of struggling with yo-yoing weight. I'd go from really, really lean because I was starving myself on some sort of crazy diet to quite overweight because I was eating all of my emotions and my feelings, and then back and forward and back and forward. And the choices that were made around who I was prepared to live with, or who I dated, or what I did and how I saw myself was all driven from this real low base. And of course, telling this story last night as I drove home with my husband, I said to Matt, I'm like, God, I feel so much shame and sadness that this is my story. And I kind of sat with that energy as we traveled home, and I got home and I'm like, well, there's always two choices that we have. It's the story to allow that past to be the determiner of who we are and what's coming for us in the future, to allow it to define us, to really direct how we see ourselves moving forward. Or I can allow it just to have been an experience, to have been things that I went through in my life, to see deeper parts of myself that exist in my soul, to know what the depth of despair feels like, to know what joy feels like, to know what it feels like to be abused, to put yourself in situations where you end up the victim, to put yourself in situations where, you have to then deal with trauma and grief to be able to know what it looks like to heal, to be able to know and experience the depth of healing, to be able to feel the depth of self-love that I have for myself now. So I was sitting on this knife edge of like, which way do I want to feel? But I choose to allow those feelings of shame to come up, to be that edge that I get to choose how I frame it. Do not let that now dictate my future, because there was that moment in the shame that came up last night and even this morning, which is why I sat with this energy and let spirit step forward to produce this flow of energy that's coming through now. It's like there is a tiny part of us that wants to believe, or automatically believes, that past is going to determine the future. It's like, well, how can I move forward and lead conversations in this sexy rebel energy and this empowered, embodied, willing to draw the line in the sand and speak the truth type energy if that's who I've been? Like, the shame is there, but Source always wants us to know that there is a choice and there's a reason why we get put through these experiences, and the reason why shame is there is this catalyst of this choice to not let it control us, to let it be the medicine, the magic, the narrative, the story that guides the next powerful chapter that says that, yes, I did do that, but also I am this. And yes, I did experience that, or I was that. I own those mistakes. I own that shame, because that shame is on the other side of it, the magic that drives us. And so if there's been something, there's a reason why this experience, and then this need to share this story is coming through. If there's something that you're still battling in your energy around shame, around regret, around letting the past or the story that you're either moving through or have moved through, even if it's like way in the past, like mine is, if there's energy there that's still telling you who you are and what you're capable of doing, know that right here, right now, you have the power of choice to let it be the catalyst of who you choose to become, to let it be those energetic weaves that happen so that you can feel those feelings and know which way you want to choose to feel. To know that you have the choice to be in the shame, to let that be the kind of person that you are, to determine your personality, to determine the energy that you get to stay in, or you get to cut it, but you get to still have it there as a reflection, or something that, something you can reflect back on, not a reflection of who you are, but this is separate, like a beautiful contained storybook that you can cut and separate and move out from your field and have it there. And say, when I need to relate to someone who's having an experience, or when I need to remember my power and how I chose differently, I can flick through the pages of that story and remember who I was, so that I can see how incredibly powerful and beautiful and meaningful I am now. How I have alchemized story and shame and guilt and regret into the magic that is me now, into the medicine that I bring to the world, into the stories that I tell to help others, because I'm a deep believer that lived wisdom is story that is medicine. The more that we deeply experience life, that we can, once we've been through it, and not necessarily when we're in it, but once we've been through it, we can look at it, look at the experience, look at the story, extract the wisdom, and then carry that wisdom forward into the work and into the magic and the medicine that we do. So I've woken up this morning, I've sat here, I've meditated on it, I've sat with the team, with spirit. This transmission is moving through me now. And so the words that are coming through me, that I can now be like, right, I can see that whole retelling of that story with my mom last night was a reason to bring the shame up this morning, for me to put it into the book, to separate myself with it, but know that it's that reference, it's a medicine. There's the keys and the codes in there that I can look in and dive into to extract the wisdom, to then bring it either into this space, into the art, into the medicine, into the coaching sessions that I do, into the things that are coming in my world. Those keys become the medicine that fuel that then not only continue to heal and expand me, but to continue to heal you and everyone else that work is going to touch. So don't be afraid of your past, of your story, of your shame, of your guilt. Allow it to become the medicine. You're independent of those past experiences with this medicine that moves you forward in the world and the work that you're here to do. And I'm sending you so much love, and I'll see you soon. If you're not in there yet and you want to get into the private Telegram space where all of these audios drop every day, as well as all the art, the conversation, and the behind the scenes, go to www.andrealeemathies.com/private podcast. You can also follow me on Instagram at Andrea Lee Matthies, and you can find more about me and all of my work at andrealeemathies.com. I'll see you in the next transmission.